pleased from the, as I had gone through all the subcommittees and watched you work, this is really a phenomenal group of people. And it is my pleasure to be able to work with you. And y'all work hard, and I greatly appreciate it. We are on the tail end. Tonight we will be talking about the preamble, the principles, and whatever resolutions were submitted. And that is all we'll do tonight. If we get bogged down in the resolutions, we may have to pick them up in the morning. A little bit of housekeeping that we need to do is on the schedule, it says that we need to be here at 8 o'clock. But we had talked about we need you to go to your subcommittee rooms at 8 o'clock and then reconvene here at 9 o'clock. There's some, for any kind of, if you need to go over your platform plans for grammar or syntax or whatever you have to do with the editors, just to brush up on it. But we all have kept the schedule very, very well, and you've done a good job, and you can be, I'm grateful for that, so thank you. The meeting will now come to order, and I would like to ask Lynn Heinenhaus. Yes. If you would give us the invocation.
Please bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessing in living in this country. We thank you that we have the freedom to worship you. Dear Lord, I pray for every person that has come to this convention, and I pray for everyone's health and everyone's safe travel. In all things, dear Lord, I pray that we know what to do, and what to think, and what to say. Dear Lord, I pray that truth prevails and that your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
I asked David Westbrook to lead us to the American pledge. Pardon me?
I thought you asked me to do that so I can do my little lecture first.
I thought that was the Texas pledge.
No, my lecture is regarding the American.
Can we switch, please? He has a.
Okay.
You want to talk into the microphone? Okay.
My name is Carl Howell. I'm with SG13. And one of the things that I try to impress upon everyone, I get an opportunity to lead the Pledge of Allegiance on a pretty regular basis. And one of the things that has kind of come to my attention is how many people actually say the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States wrong. There is a line in the Pledge of Allegiance where we say, in God we trust. That everyone says it like there's a comma. There is no comma. It is not in God we trust. It's actually in God we trust. All one continuous, no break. So when I do lead the pledge, I will say it for I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. David.
Everyone. Pledge allegiance to Texas.
That's why we like to
State under God, one indivisible.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now come to order. Karen will now call the roll. Karen has been very helpful in trying and working very hard to make sure that everyone has everything that they need and not just allowing it to happen.
Karen doesn't need to share a microphone. Butch Marsalis.
Here.
Bunny Towns. Here. Jeff LeBlanc.
Here.
Kate Welch. Gina Flores. Here. Margaret Matthews. Tom Novis.
Here.
Paul Chabot.
Here.
Lee Armstrong. Dan Tully.
Here.
Tanya Robertson. Here. Jill Glover. Here. Carl McConnell.
Here.
Will Lutz.
Here.
Rolando Garcia.
Here.
Matthew Patrick.
Here.
Roman Klein.
Here.
Bill Posey. Stuart Knowlton.
Here.
Chuck Burnett. Carter Thomas.
Here.
Paul Perry.
Here.
Stephen Broden.
Here.
Darcy Hasty. Here. Lisa Nelson. Here. David Westbrook.
Here.
Wolf Tapa. Carl Bissett. Mark Dunham.
Hello.
Marilyn Gernswater. Mary Kay Phelan. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Karen. We do have a forum, and we will start the business. Do we have a motion on the floor for the preamble? And we'll begin with the 2018 preamble. Mr. Dunn.
On SB 21, I vote that we accept the preamble as written in 2018.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the preamble as written in 2018. We have a second. Roman Klein. SB 17 is a second. Is there any debate? Hearing none, without objection, we will accept the preamble as written in 2018. The motion carries. Now we move on to the principles. Do we have a motion on the floor to accept the 2018 principles? Would you say your name and precinct?
Jill Glover, Section 12. Actually, we believe that we amend Principle 6.
We need a motion on the floor to accept the principles.
I would,
I'll move to accept the presentation for 2018.
Okay, Mr. Garcia has made a motion. Do we have a second to accept the principles?
Sorry.
There's been a second. Mr. Garcia, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes,
Would you find it in mind?
we'll try.
Can you hear me? We can hear you.
Okay. We spend a lot of time adjusting our platform because policies change, events change, and so we need to be, that needs to be adjusted. The principles part of the platform is the one part that doesn't need to change from year to year because our principles don't change, right? Our principles are constant. And we include these principles at least throughout since I've been on the team in 16 and 18, and no one has always ever been in debate about this. These principles are something that, a contentious committee that everyone agrees on, and that is not easy to find. They're almost everyone agrees on, and that's not easy to find, so why is it a good thing?
Thank you very much. Jill, say your name and ask me.
Jill Glover, Section 12. So
Please do that.
I would oppose, in that I would like to propose a change to Principle number 6.
Okay, so there's no opposition to this amendment? Okay, so you move to amend.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it is,
Principle 6.
okay, there's a motion on the floor to amend Principle 6. State your amendment.
Yes, sir. Self-sufficient families instituted by God and founded on traditional marriage from one natural man and one natural woman, recognized in law due to traditional family law preserving liberty and social stability. And Mr. Chairman, we wish to make this amendment.
And do we have a second on, do we have a second on the amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, do you have your amendment in writing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you please bring it forward to the secretary? Lydia Hills.
While she's presenting that,
You recognize Mr. Gunn?
Yes, sir. I'd like to, very quick change here, change it, the first principle listed there, it says 2018 to make it say 2020.
Without objection, we will change the 2018 platform to 2020. Hearing none, it is adopted that the 2018 platform will now be 2020. Thank you, Mr. Gunn.
Mr. Chairman, still,
Could you,
Mr. Secretary,
Mr. Knowles, you recognize?
we'd like to add, no public action should, or vote should violate any principles.
Do you, is that an additional principle?
No, it's an additional item to the opening. No, it's not the preamble, it's the first sentence of the principle.
Okay, we are on the principles, so we just changed the 2018 to 2020,
Right.
and you wanted to add,
At the end of the sentence, before we believe in, I wanted to add, no Republican action or vote should violate any of these principles.
okay, we will take that up as soon as we finish debating hers. Thank you. Okay, what do we have for her? Okay, the amendment to principle number 6 is that correct? Is that 6? Self-sufficient families instituted by God and founded on the traditional marriage of only one man, one natural man, and one natural woman, recognized in law due to the traditional family's role in preserving liberty and social stability. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we are finding that
Traditional marriage is declining in our society as we're watching the utilize the collapse of our society. And so we wish to just bulk up this principle a little bit and tie it to our liberty and our social stability and to meet the fact that traditional marriage and family affects the society's stability. So that's the purpose of this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed to the amendment to principle number 6? State your name and address.
Darcy ACS,
Darcy, talk to the mic.
Darcy ACS 224. I oppose because doubling down on
Number 6 does nothing to bolster our position as the Republican Party. It disenfranchises part of the Republican Party. I myself, as a homosexual Republican, already feels as though I'm not fully accepted into the Republican Party, and I'm not alone.
So to double down, to make it harder to bolster up number 6, tells all of us that we don't belong.
And I don't think the Republican
The party should take that stance.
Thank you. Is there anyone in favor of the amendment to the principle number 6? She's recognized, and as soon as then we will recognize you.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Nilsson, SD 25, and while I respect the concerns of my colleague over there. Simply opposing this doesn't change what the plank already says, that it's founded on traditional marriage of a natural man and natural woman. We're simply adding language to strengthen and bolster the idea that two-parent families and the understanding of family that has existed in our culture for thousands of years is actually very important to the stability of us as a culture and the well-being of our children and therefore the future of our nation. And it doesn't exclude homosexuals in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I recognized, Rolando, I'm sorry. State your name, precinct number.
Rolando Garcia, SD 15. I'm kind of curious because in all the years of dealing with the platform, I have never encountered people who were unclear on our position on traditional marriage. So I'm kind of curious as to where this came from, where people say, Jill, there's something wrong with this marriage plank, and it's not strong enough. Because have you been hearing that?
Sure.
Could you direct your comments to the chair? Okay. He's asked for a clarification on your thought. Go ahead.
Yes.
Now your clarification will be, this will be the third in favor.
Okay. Yes. So our intent with this is to tie it to the idea of social stability, because it's true that Republicans have always believed in traditional marriage. But the question is, why have we always believed in traditional marriage? And so we felt like some clarification about why we believe in traditional marriage was important. And the reason is because God instituted marriage. And the marriage that he instituted was between one natural man and one natural woman. And he didn't do that just arbitrarily, but he did that in the grand scheme of setting up a society. And so he began with one man, one woman, and a family, and that was the building block of a society. And as we're watching our society begin to fall apart, we're seeing that traditional marriage is now not as common as it has been in the past. And so we're really wanting to remind people this is why we believe in traditional marriage, because God set it up that way so that society will most benefit.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Is there anyone opposed?
Yes.
State your name and
Jeff LeBlanc, SD3.
Are you opposed or in favor?
I'm going to speak against.
Against, okay.
It's been made clear.
Mr.
even
Chair,
from-
point of information.
Point of information, Mr. Welch.
David Westbrook,
I'm
issue 26.
I'll get him right, honest. Hey, Mr.
Can
Westbrook.
we get access to the language written out somewhere? It's a lot, it's very wordy.
Would you please state your point of information?
Would it be possible to get the amendment?
You want to amend the amendment?
No, the text of I want to see the text of the amendment. It's too wordy for me to put my brain around right now.
The language is up on the...
No, it's not.
Okay.
Is it available
We are
online?
looking for another cable on the computer, so it'll... Here you go.
Where you got the links for your subcommittees, you can get that there
Mine
at
were
the
emailed to me.
2020 platform Excel sheets file, and then click on principles, and then scroll down to where I've typed that. So you can see that it will be highlighted in green right now because it's alternate language. Raise your hand if you see that so I know if anybody can find it. Not on the RPP website, it's on the, do they not have the link to?
It's redundant.
No, I don't. Well, the link, I was talking about the big...
We know my computer will work because we use it every day, but it's not working with this cable, which is a longer cable that apparently needs
Mr. Westbrook, can you read the documentation?
Not with that lighting.
Okay, while they're working on that, do we,
I still have the floor.
I'm sorry. Please state your name and precinct number one more time.
Jeff LeBlanc, SD3. I'm speaking against, I think we understand it as it stands, how it's always been. And I would say even the person offering the change replied to a former rebuttal as it hasn't changed. You already knew what it meant. So I see this as a needless change. Principles should be short and to the point, not long drawn-out explanations like we try to do in planks. So for that reason, I'm not against the intent, but I am against adding the extra language.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Is there anyone, have we had 3 in favors yet? We had 3 in favors. We had 2 opposed. We had 2 for and 2 against. Is there anyone else for the proposal? The amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Let me
Pastor
read it.
Roden, SD 23.
Let me go ahead and read the proposal one more time, and then I will call you. The amendment to the main motion is self-sufficient families instituted by God and founded on the traditional marriage of only one natural man and one natural woman, recognized in law due to the traditional family role in preserving liberty and social stability. Mr. Broden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in favor of this statement. It's not a long statement. It's only 2 sentences. I don't think that's long at all. Second of all, we are currently in our nation experiencing a collapse of our institutions that influence us and are responsible for retaining and providing values for all of our nation. There are 7 institutions that are currently collapsing right before our eyes. We see media, academia, the family, the church, and corporations, and arts are all collapsing. They're changing. The values are changing and shifting. For us to support this institution, the family, which is the bedrock of those institutions that influence us, is an essential step to communicate to not only to our party, but to our nation, the significance and value of having a traditional family that raises children that would embrace those values and carry them into the future. Our posterity needs to have an unchanging definition that is immutable, that is applicable to all generations at all time. And so as we witness in our culture a shifting of our values, a redefinition of our morality, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Broden. Do we have someone opposed?
Mr. Chair, is there any way that we could, they've now got it up on the wall over there, but it's very difficult to see due to the glare of the lights. Is there any way we can get the lights around that area shut off? Thank you.
You know what? You know, Carl, you're tall enough. We can just send you out there to just get us
I
one.
can just pull out my gun and just shoot all the lights and that'd take care of it.
Okay. Okay, we had 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Do we have anyone else that is opposed to the motion? State your name and precinct number.
Rolando Garcia, SD 15. I would oppose for the reason previously stated. I feel I agree with all of these sentiments, and they're already expressed very well in our planks. And we just approved today in State Affairs a plank that very powerfully states God's design for sexuality in marriage. I feel like by trying to load up this principle, we're trying to get too much, we're trying to justify the principle and get into explanations, which is kind of not really the point of the principles. I would also add, when we say recognized in law, we're going to make that a principle. I believe it should be, but keep in mind that our principles are what we hold our electeds to. Every single one of our electeds fails on this because none of them have lifted a finger to protect traditional marriage since the Obergefell decision. Not Greg Abbott, not Dan Patrick, none of them have lifted a finger to do that, even though it is in our platform. So we'll put this in our principles, and that'll be another issue, because they're not doing much to protect life from conception. So I just feel like, what we're doing is really out of step from where our electeds are, which I'm all for holding electeds accountable and to hold them to our principles. But at the same time, I feel like we're strengthening something even as public opinion and our electeds are going the other way. And I wonder if this is really the best path to change that.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. We have had 3 in favor, 3 opposed. Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of the amendment to the principle self-sufficient families instituted by God and founded on the traditional marriage of only one natural man and one natural woman, recognized in law due to the traditional family's role in preserving liberty and social stability. All those in favor of the motion to the amendment to the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The very first vote. Okay, the chair is unclear. All those in favor of the motion, stand up, count off, and sit down. And we will start down here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
All those opposed to the motion, stand up, count off, and sit down. And we will start over here, Mr. Westbrook.
1,
I'm sorry.
3, 4, 5,
9,
11,
12,
13,
15.
There's 12 in favor, 15 opposed. The motion is lost. Now we will go back to the main motion. Okay, we're right. Can we help? We'll end in a few minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion,
Mr. Chairman?
self-sufficient families, yes.
Tanya
It is. Point of
Robertson.
information?
No, sir. Tanya Robertson, SD 11.
Ms.
I'd like
Robertson?
to offer an amendment.
Okay, state your amendment to the motion.
Principle number 2.
Wait, we're on principle number 6.
I didn't know we were taking them in order.
Okay, we are.
Yeah, we had moved to approve all of them, and we took her amendment on 6, so we're just.
Okay, thank you. The chair stands correct. Okay, Ms. Robertson, sorry.
Sorry about that. After the comma, which should be, add the word equally before protected. So it's just adding one word, equally.
Okay, are you on?
Principle number 2.
Okay. Okay, the amendment to the platform plank, the principle is the sanctity of human life, innocent human life, created in the image of God, which should be equally protected from fertilization to natural death. The word equally is added. Do we have a second?
Second, Jeff LeBlanc, SD3.
Second by Mr. LeBlanc. Ms. Robertson, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I think it pretty much speaks for itself.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, to the amendment to the motion, the sanctity of innocent human life created in the image of God, which should be equally protected from fertilization to natural death. All those in favor of adding the word equally, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Now we vote on the main, no, okay. Now we go to the main motion to accept all the planks as stated. Are you ready for the question? Mr. Nobles.
Mr. Chair, didn't I have a motion pending?
You know what, I stopped you from doing that and I was supposed to call on you to have you do it. Please state your motion.
My motion is to change the leading sentence of the principles to add, after acknowledgement and action, a new sentence: no Republican action should vote, no Republican action or vote should violate any of these principles.
No Republican action or vote should violate these principles. Is that correct?
Violate any of these principles.
Okay, we have.
Which one are you talking about?
This is the leading sentence of principles. Not,
Read it the way you want it to sound.
the whole sentence should read, "We, the 2020 Republican Party of Texas, believe in this platform and expect our elected leaders to uphold these truths through acknowledgement and action. No Republican action or vote should violate any of these principles. We believe in."
I second 20 pounds SD2.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Nobles, do you wish to speak to your amendment?
We've had lots of people that have gone and not really upheld our principles and voted otherwise. So I think we want to get clarity to say this is really what we believe in and they should uphold them.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Name and SD number.
Darcy Hasty, SD 24. I oppose simply because I'm running for elected office, and as stated before on number 6 as it stands, I cannot vote for anything that would violate number 6 or violate homosexual rights to have a family, because I believe in that. So.
Okay, are you talking principle 6 or we are talking sentence 1?
I understand that. But he's saying, as a Republican, I am a Republican. If I hold office, I cannot myself uphold number 6 as it stands if I'm a Republican holding office. So that would automatically violate what he's saying. He's saying, as a Republican, I cannot go against these principles, right? That's what his intent is. So am I not a Republican anymore because I believe that homosexuals have equal rights and we're still allowed to be members of the Republican Party? And because I would vote for homosexual rights, that no longer makes me a Republican. I believe that that's wrong, and we should not add any more language to that, which is why I'm against.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone in favor of the amendment?
Rolando Garcia, SD 15.
Point of information.
When it says no Republican vote or action can contradict these principles, are we talking about...
Mr. Garcia, are you opposed or are you going for point of information?
Point of information.
Point of information. Okay.
Yeah, so when it says that no Republican vote,
Action or
no Republican action or vote should violate these principles, is that referring to elected officials or to every Republican or to every party official or all of the above?
That's a good question. When it comes down to individuals, this is just my own personal opinion to try to answer the question. Each individual has their own conscience, and you have to vote according to the dictates of your conscience. And the principles which you live by dictate how you're going to vote. On the principles, this is my opinion. You can take $2 and buy yourself a cup of coffee at Starbucks, okay? But I believe that I don't believe that causing you to vote against your dictates of conscience would have an individual like anybody that has to vote would violate that. I don't believe this would do that. Mr. Nobles, do you have anything else to add to that? Okay.
Mr.
Does that
Chairman,
answer your question?
Sort of. I mean,
Sort of. Whenever the legislature, whenever I saw the legislature debating things, there was things that certain legislators were opposed to, because it's just that how they were not raised. They could not, in good conscience, make a particular vote a certain way, even though it was against its constituents.
the reason I asked the question is because, of course, in our rules, we do have a process for elected officials who violate our principles. And I'm wondering if, and so in that context, our principles, there is a disciplinary action for electeds who violate our principles. And I'm wondering if this is now extending that, or is this simply a sentiment?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't know.
can I speak in favor of the amendment,
Okay,
Chairman? I think this just puts extra teeth to what we're saying right before, where it says we expect our elected leaders to uphold these truths through acknowledgement and action, and then we're adding extra teeth to it, is how I read it, and that's why I seconded it. Because it just gives it a little bit more strength and and I think that we need this in this season of time right now in our state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. That was one in favor, and that was two, we had one in favor, two in favor and one opposed. Is there anyone else opposed?
I'd like to speak again.
You have already spoken to your motion. Is there anyone else opposed to the motion?
David Westbrook, SG 26.
That's the motion we're speaking to.
This strikes me as being repetitive, and
Could you please state your name and SD number?
David Westbrook, SD 26. Again, it strikes me as being repetitive and not necessary. It does not give it extra oomph in my book. It just restates it like a toddler would, saying the same thing over and over again, hoping it changes.
Okay, thank you. That was two in favor and two opposed. We have one more in favor. Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the amendment, we, the 2020 Republican Party of Texas, believe in this platform and expect our elected leaders to uphold these truths through acknowledgement and action. No Republican action or vote should violate any of these principles we believe in. All those in favor of the amendment to the main motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
All those in favor of the motion, the amendment to the motion, no Republican action or vote should violate any of these principles, stand up, count off, and sit down. In favor. Okay. Just over there is Mr. Broden.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
11,
12,
13.
Okay. All those opposed, stand up, count off, and sit down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8,
9,
11.
12.
14.
Okay, the amendment to the motion is lost. We now go to the main motion. We, the 2020 Republican Party of Texas, believe in this platform and expect our elected leaders to uphold these truths through acknowledgement and action we believe in. All those in favor of the main motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The motion carries. Now we will vote on the principles as a whole. All those in favor of the principles as outlined, the 2020 principles. You want me to read them all? No. God bless you. Thank you.
Point of information,
All those in favor
Mr.
of the
Chairman.
2020 principle? What?
Point of information,
Uh,
point of inquiry.
What?
As amended, the
Yes,
principles
as
as amended.
amended.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. All those in favor of the principles of the 2020 platform as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you very much. And now we will proceed to the resolutions. Do we have them?
Chairman, can I ask a question? A number of attendees were
Could
traveling.
you
Oh, I'm
state
sorry,
your
Paul
na-
Chabot, Senate District 8. Just so I can understand the process, a number of attendees are traveling, believing tomorrow they're making comments. Will there be anything here where they, if they arrive tomorrow, will feel like they didn't get a chance to address?
Yeah. Okay, are you talking about the resolutions that we will be voting on? If we vote, any resolution that we vote on and pass, yes. Are you asking that as a resolution as a potential plank?
Well, potentially. I just want to raise the issue because a lot of members have shown their intent of being here tomorrow. So, but I don't know beyond their intent of what they intend to vote on, just that they want to be here to be heard.
Mhm.
So I just want to present this now so that tomorrow we don't have an upset.
Okay, the resolutions that we are going to be voting on are resolutions that came in for rule changes or for whatever was submitted, censure, whatever. Now the planks on the individual individual resolutions that were submitted and you all worked on, the people will have an opportunity to testify into all nine different categories tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a resolution, a motion on a resolution that needs to be passed? Mr. Broden, I believe you had one.
Caught me flat-footed. Give me a second. Could you go to someone else? I need to pull it up.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Mr. Carl?
Carl McConnell, SD 13. Could you clarify what the nature of these resolutions are? These aren't, I'm trying to ascertain, are these new resolutions that haven't been considered by all of the subcommittees already? Or where did these resolutions that are popping up now coming from?
Okay. Okay, at the end of the platform, at the end of the 2018 platform, there are resolutions that were passed by the platform committee. And on page 30, one of the resolutions are the Texas Republican Party concurs in the censure of the Texas State Representative Byron R. Cook pursuant to the Texas Republican Party General Rules for Conventions and Meetings for committing 3 or more acts in contravention of the Republican Party of the Texas core principles. Further, we delegates of the Texas Republican Party impose any and all sanctions, penalties, on and on. That is the type of resolution that we're voting for, or voting on. And that is the only one that I see that was in the 2018 platform.
A point of information, Mr. Chairman.
State your name and precinct number.
Pastor Broden, SD 23. This resolution that I am speaking to, I believe was submitted through SD 23 in the normal process. It may have been considered already.
To your knowledge, was it assigned to a committee?
No, not to my knowledge, but I know it was submitted with the rest of the resolutions that were submitted in a timely fashion by SD 23.
Okay.
The title is the Honorable John G. Roberts Jr.'s Illegal Policymaking and Malicious and Fraudulent Conduct at the Judicial Conference of the United States.
Can you email that to us?
Yes. You mean email it again?
She can't get email here. Can you send it in a text? If you can read it aloud, she will type it as fast as she can.
It's too big. It's too big.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, give me your email, Linda.
I believe it's in my spreadsheet.
It's at the end of the spreadsheet?
Tom, what is the end of those combined?
Yeah.
So it was in a PDF document combined.
I send this to you. I send it tomorrow.
No, I think it's got, look in State Affairs and search for Roberts in the text column.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Could you state your name and precinct?
Tanya Robertson, SD 11. We just got communication from a delegate that wants to present a resolution. Would he be able to do that tomorrow?
Is it for a resolution for a plank, or is it for a resolution is what we're
It's
trying
a
to find?
resolution.
She can present it right now. She's not here yet.
So we're just accepting resolutions tonight?
It is up to the committee. If the committee would like to accept resolutions tomorrow, we can do that.
Okay.
We can do that tomorrow at the,
May I do that on his behalf?
yes, you may.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to accept a single resolution tomorrow when the committee member comes. Without objection, we'll allow the committee member, what is their name?
He's a delegate, TJ Scott.
Susan Scott?
TJ.
There's Mr. Scott will present a resolution tomorrow before the committee.
Question, parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. State your
Do
name.
we know anything about the nature of this resolution?
Yes, it's a resolution calling for Texas legislators special session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Okay. So without objection, we'll have Mr. Scott present a resolution, what's the name of it? About a special legislative session.
And all committee members received it in the email.
Okay, it'll be in an email. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, you found it? Okay. Is it a resolution?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay. Okay, we found Mr. Broden's resolution. Now therefore be it resolved. Does he have the word? No, we didn't have it there. Okay, the resolution as Pastor Broden had presented, now therefore be it resolved that the Republican Party of Texas call for President Donald J. Trump to inform the American people of Chief Justice Roberts' misconduct and his policy making, and to take all appropriate political and executive actions to protect the Constitution and the American people from Roberts' misconduct, and to instruct the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate Chief Roberts' misconduct. The conference's processing of Roberts' misconduct, the DRE judicial and DRE legal matters. Do we have a second on this resolution? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of second.
Marga Matthews, SD6, I second that.
Okay. Okay, the motion was by Pastor Broden. It was seconded by. Okay, Pastor Broden, do you wish to speak to your motion? Do you wish to speak to your resolution, Pastor Broden?
Sure. In 1998, the Judicial Conduct Act was passed, and it was designed to give the citizens of the United States an opportunity to check judges that were out of control. That policy or that law has been violated by Justice Roberts by creating policies to negate that law. He has not been checked. He has been running sort of outside of the bounds and limitations of that law. And here's an opportunity, I think, for us to enact that particular law that was signed by Jimmy Carter in 1980 and is available to citizens today to check judges, federal judges, who are out of control. And Roberts is out of control because he is making policies which go beyond the enumerated duties specified to him within the Constitution and is in violation of the Judicial Act of 1980.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to the resolution? State your name and precinct number.
Carter Thomas.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, SD 21. I don't know if there's anybody in here, maybe there is, but that is more conscious of the Supreme Court than I, who thinks that Congress does have authority to limit their actions. We even have put it in planks that we will be voting on tomorrow. But the only constitutional remedy that I know, judges, it doesn't say they have lifetime tenure. It says they have tenure while under good behavior. If we believe his behavior is not good behavior, the only constitutional remedy is impeachment. So I do not support this.
Thank you. Is there anyone in favor of the resolution? Hearing none.
I'm in favor of Marga Matthews, SD6,
Okay.
due to the fact that they should be held accountable, just like everybody else.
Could you state your name again?
Marga Matthews, SD6.
Marga Matthews is in favor. Is there anyone else, anyone opposed? Hearing none, are you ready for the, Mr. Garcia?
Yeah. Not that I'm against holding electeds accountable. That's something that we need to do, and it's something I hope this committee will do in later resolutions. There's one elected official in Texas who does need to be held accountable. But if we're going to, I guess, pass a resolution against John Roberts for policymaking, I mean, why don't we do that for the four Democrat justices of the Supreme Court who policy make all the time?
You are welcome to make an amendment.
And, you know, frankly, in both Kavanaugh and Gorsuch they've kind of veered on some decisions into policymaking, not as bad as Roberts. I mean, honestly, the only ones who are the really true constitutionalists in the court, I think, right now, are Alito and Clarence Thomas. So while I agree John Roberts has turned out to be a liberal justice, I don't know what the legal remedy would be for that. The other member mentioned there is the remedy of impeachment, which is a constitutional remedy. But other than that, I don't know what the appropriate remedy would be, and I don't know what the end game for this resolution would be. We want an investigation, but then what?
Thank you.
Is that a question that I can answer, Mr. Chairman?
That would be out of order, because you spoke to your motion. We had one in favor. I mean, you're in favor, and we had two in favor.
So the question goes unanswered.
Okay, Mr. Broden, go ahead and speak to your.
Okay.
Okay, we had 2 opposed and 2 in favor. Okay, is there anyone else in favor of the resolution?
I'll speak in favor of it. Lisa Nielsen, SD 25.
Okay, Ms. Nielsen, you have the floor.
And while I don't disagree that there are other remedies and other ways to deal with this as well, I think sometimes much of what we do here is symbolic, but that it's very important that we do have the courage to stand up to our Supreme Court officials who have run away with their privileges and are legislating from the bench. And so I'm in favor of this for symbolic reasons alone.
Thank you. Is there anyone else opposed? Pardon me?
Can I make a comment?
You can do that.
Again, this is I guess more.
State your name and
Carter
precinct.
Thomas, SD 21. Again, this is probably more of a personal opinion, but I think symbolism is good on the campaign trail. But when we put into action, we need to follow the Constitution. And there are 2 remedies to rein in the Supreme Court. One is through Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, and one is impeachment. Those are the only 2 I've ever seen. And we can badmouth him in the press. We can do all the things that symbolically prove and we can even write letters to the newspaper. But I would caution against sanctioning anything that's not constitutionally founded.
Point of information.
Pastor Broden,
Pastor Broden, SD 23. Unfortunately, I think because the entire resolution has not been read, there is an assumption that the only remedy available to us is the one has been the 2 that have been stated by my friend from across the way there. But that only reveals the fact that he is totally unaware of the Judicial Conduct Act and Disability Act of 1980, which opens the door for us to hold the justices accountable according to that act. It was signed into law by Congress, by Jimmy Carter, crafted by Congress in response to judges who were out of control at the time of Watergate. And in response to that issue.
What is your point of information?
It's point of providing information.
Point of providing information. Okay, you're out of order.
No, well, here's my
Either
question.
opposed
Here's my question then, a point of information. Are you aware, or anyone on this committee aware of the Judicial Council Reform and Judicial Conduct Disability Act of 1980 and the implications for controlling and disciplining judges who are violating their constitutional duty that is enumerated specifically to them in the Constitution?
Pastor Broden, do you have your whereases? Can you read us the resolution? Do you have the full resolution? I do. It's there. We need to read the full resolution.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Dunham, SD 29.
Okay, we found the resolution. Okay, resolution number 59. The Honorable John G. Roberts Jr., illegal policymaking, and fraudulent conduct at the Judicial Conference of the United States. Whereas on October 15, 1980, in the aftermath of the Watergate scandal, during the second session of the 96th U.S. Congress, which convened on January 3, 1980, Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, signed the Judicial Council's Reform and Judicial Conduct and Disability Act of 1980. The act has become the Judicial Conduct Act and the Conference and Council's law. Whereas the act ended voluntarily unsupervised self-regulation and impeachment as the only two methods of controlling and disciplining the federal judges. It did so by authorizing any person to file a complaint against a federal judge or federal judges. The act created the position of presiding officer of the Judicial Conference of the United States to supervise and control the process of these complaints and review their resolution. The act requires that the complaint be treated with respect and be provided with access to subject judge or judges required to conduct full and speedy investigation, that the investigation be transparent, and the complaint be fairly and promptly resolved, and that the matter of all complaints be reported to allow the meaningful review by Congress, the President, and the public. Whereas the Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr. is the presiding officer of the conference, Robert is therefore the individual who is authorized and obligated to discipline the federal judges. Roberts is required to regulate and supervise the processing of complaints filed with any person or by a federal judge against another federal judge or by its own processes and execution actions as a sole investigator, prosecutor, judge and jury. Roberts' conduct and performance in regulating and disciplining the federal judges is subject to review by any person through the conference and by the President and the Congress. Whereas the federal judges have no discretion, authority, right, power, or jurisdiction to use deliberate violations of the canons of good conduct, truth, and reason, to deliberately, maliciously, dishonestly, or fraudulently conceal, ignore, or refuse to consider any fact, factor, or circumstance, or law or right relevant to a ruling, decision, or judgment, to act without clear authority or violate the Constitution's separate powers of doctrine, to facilitate factitious narratives in order to manufacture a fictitious reason for making a decision, ruling, order, or judgment that will abridge, enlarge, or modify any substantive right, U.S. Code chapter, whatever, or that can be construed, administered, and employed to delay, obstruct, impair, or interfere with the rights to secure a just, speedy, and inexpensive determination and any action and processing in the U.S., state, and courts, federal rules of civil procedure. Whereas no federal judicial policy can authorize any of the conduct that violates this rule, one, for any reason, purpose, neither the Roberts nor any federal judge nor any conference has any discretion, authority, right, power, or jurisdiction to engage in any fourth policy making that remotely affects or infringes any right, evidence, or judgment, or that is not based on a confidable, neutral principles. Whereas the top of it's about the judicial conference page on the conferences. How much more do we have to read?
What, Mr. Chairman, Mark Dunham, SD 29, point of
Mr. Dunham, you
information.
have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that this law that my esteemed colleague is referring to does not overrule the Constitution. That would have to be an amendment to the Constitution to overrule that which is already in the Constitution. The law was written to make a political statement against judges. It's never been used, and that's why it's never been enacted, because it's unconstitutional.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dunham.
Mr. Chairman. May I make a comment over here? Hey, Matt Patrick, SD 16.
Mr. Patrick, are you in favor or opposed to the?
I'm opposed.
Opposed. Okay. This will be the final opposition.
Okay. I tend to be pretty practical and try to look ahead at what is going to happen with what we're doing. Thinking about this law and how it was created, I mean, if you read through what is being said, basically was a buck-passing exercise from the Congress where they're booting their authority to act under the Constitution to impeach judges that are out of line, which is really the correct remedy, as Carter stated. If you think about the practical implications of this, what are we really asking? We're asking the attorneys at the Department of Justice to investigate and bring suit against the people who they also then have to go in front of to try and get rulings on all sorts of other issues, be they criminal, such as, or anything related to the Russia fraud that we all know of. So it's really putting what the Congress has done with passing this law is put the DOJ and their attorneys, the Attorney General, in an untenable position, and that is why this is bad law and it's a bad remedy. I don't disagree with you in terms of having a beef with Justice Roberts, but as Rolando stated, I have a beef with 4 other justices that are on the court too for consistently, over decades, failing the test that this law would point us to. So the correct remedy really is impeachment. So if you're going to be upset with someone, instead of being mad at Roberts, who you should be mad at is Congress. And if we're going to point the finger at somebody, who we should be pointing the finger at is our congressional leaders who have failed to ever act, to my knowledge, I think only once in the history of the country, to actually go after and impeach a federal judge, and we've never tried to impeach a justice in the Supreme Court as far as I know. So I would personally like to see Congress be much more active in terms of utilizing the impeachment remedy that they have to bring justices and judges at the federal level to heel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have had 3 in favor and 3 opposed. Are
Chairman.
you ready for the question?
Point of information,
Please state your name and SD number.
Stuart Knowlton, SD 19.
Mr. Knowlton?
I'm of the belief that it just read something that this would not apply to a Supreme Court justice, since the way it was written, the Supreme Court justice or the Chief Justice is the adjudicator. Just a point of information.
Okay. Okay, are you ready? Well taken. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the amendment of of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The motion is lost. Are there any other resolutions to be brought forth before this body?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
State your name and...
William Lutz, Senate District 14. One question I have is, you mentioned Byron Cook. We're not censuring him again, are we?
No, we use that as an example so that people know that we have resolutions at the end of the front.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Representative Cooks. I voted to censure him the last time, but he's no longer in public office, and I think that's an appropriate remedy for that situation.
Yeah. No, we don't need to beat that dead horse. Okay. Any resolution has to be brought up from the committee here. So we have no other. Are there any other resolutions that need to be brought before this committee? Okay, we have completed our work for this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion to adjourn? State your name and...
Carter Thomas.
Carter Thomas. Do we have a second?
Second, Margaret Matthews, SD 6.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. We are adjourned until tomorrow morning. Remember, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, please meet in your committee rooms, go through your planks, do any kind of adjusting that you have with the editors. We will meet here at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Government and Foreign Affairs is going to meet in our committee room real briefly now that we've adjourned. I will try to get us out quickly.
Okay, are there any other announcements that anyone needs to make? Thank you. You are a great committee.